Welcome to Truth Be Told, where we delve into the shadows of history to uncover stories that challenge our understanding of the past. I'm Noah Friedman, and in today's episode, we're exploring a chilling chapter from the Cold War era, a declassified military proposal known as Operation Northwoods. It's a tale of intrigue, deception, and the lengths to which governments might go to achieve their objectives. To fully grasp the implications of Operation Northwoods, it's essential to understand the geopolitical climate of the early 1960s. The Cold War was at its zenith, characterized by an intense rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. This period was marked by a pervasive fear of communism's spread, leading the U.S. to adopt a policy of containment to prevent Soviet influence from expanding further. In 1959, Fidel Castro led a revolutionary movement that successfully overthrew the Cuban dictator Fulgencio Batista. Initially, the U.S. government was ambivalent about Castro's rise to power. However, as Castro's government began nationalizing American-owned industries in Cuba and aligning itself with the Soviet Union, U.S. concerns escalated. The prospect of a communist state just 90 miles from Florida was perceived as a direct threat to American national security. In response to Castro's consolidation of power and his ties with the Soviet Union, the U.S. government, under President Dwight D. Eisenhower, authorized the Central Intelligence Agency to develop a plan to remove Castro from power. This plan culminated in the Bay of Pigs invasion. On April 17, 1961, approximately 1,400 Cuban exiles, trained and funded by the CIA, landed at the Bay of Pigs on Cuba's southern coast. The operation was predicated on the belief that the invasion would spark a popular uprising against Castro. However, the plan was flawed from the outset. The landing site was a remote, swampy area, and the invaders faced immediate resistance from Cuban forces. Moreover, the anticipated support from the local population failed to materialize. Within 3 days, the invasion force was defeated, with many killed or captured. The Bay of Pigs invasion was a significant embarrassment for the United States and had far-reaching consequences. It not only solidified Castro's power, but also pushed Cuba closer to the Soviet Union, setting the stage for future confrontations. In the aftermath of the Bay of Pigs invasion, the U.S. military sought alternative strategies to address the quote-unquote Cuban problem. This led to the development of Operation Northwoods in 1962 by the Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The plan was audacious and deeply troubling: to orchestrate acts of terrorism on American soil and blame them on the Cuban government, thereby creating a pretext for military intervention. The declassified documents reveal a series of proposed actions, including orchestrating bombings and hijackings of civilian aircraft in U.S. cities, making it appear as though Cuban agents were responsible. Another proposal involved attacking boats carrying Cuban refugees fleeing to the United States, leading to loss of life that could be attributed to Castro's regime. Additionally, faking a Cuban Air Force attack was also considered. This entailed simulating an attack on a civilian jetliner, making it appear as though Cuban forces were responsible. These actions were all designed to incite public outrage and garner international support for a U.S.-led invasion of Cuba. To comprehend how such a plan could be conceived, it's important to delve into the mindset of U.S. military leadership during this period. The Cold War fostered an environment of paranoia and urgency. The spread of communism was viewed as an existential threat, and Cuba's proximity to the U.S. made it a focal point of concern. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, led by General Lyman Lemnitzer, believed that decisive action was necessary to prevent the Soviet Union from gaining a foothold in the Western Hemisphere. When Operation Northwoods was presented to President John F. Kennedy and Defense Secretary Robert McNamara, it was met with unequivocal rejection. Kennedy was reportedly outraged by the proposal, leading to a significant rift between the White House and military leadership. Shortly thereafter, General Lemnitzer was reassigned, and the plan was shelved. The existence of Operation Northwoods remained hidden from the public for decades. It wasn't until the late 1990s, through the efforts of the National Security Archive and the declassification of documents, that the full extent of the plan was revealed. The implications were profound, sparking debates about the ethical boundaries of covert operations and the potential for government manipulation of public perception. The tensions between the US and Cuba reached a climax during the Cuban Missile Crisis in October of 1962. American U-2 spy planes discovered Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction in Cuba, leading to a 13-day standoff that brought the world to the brink of nuclear war. President Kennedy responded by imposing a naval blockade around Cuba and demanding the removal of the missiles. After tense negotiations, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev agreed to dismantle the missile sites in exchange for a U.S. public declaration not to invade Cuba and a secret agreement to remove U.S. missiles from Turkey. Operation Northwoods is a quintessential example of a false flag operation. Covert actions designed to deceive by making it appear as though they are carried out by other entities. Throughout history, such tactics have been employed to justify military actions. For instance, Nazi Germany used a false flag operation, known as the Gleiwitz Incident, to justify its invasion of Poland in 1939. Gestapo operatives, dressed in Polish uniforms, attacked a German radio station, providing a pretext for the subsequent invasion. The revelation of Operation Northwoods raises profound ethical and philosophical questions about the lengths to which governments might go to achieve strategic objectives. It challenges the moral boundaries of statecraft and the potential manipulation of public trust. Such revelations underscore the importance of transparency, oversight, and accountability in governmental operations. As we reflect on Operation Northwoods, several questions arise. What safeguards are in place today to prevent such proposals from being considered? How does public awareness and transparency influence government decision-making? And perhaps, most importantly, how can we, as citizens, remain vigilant against the potential for deception in the name of national security? These are not just historical inquiries, but ongoing considerations in the complex interplay between government actions and public trust. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Operation Northwoods. If you found this episode thought-provoking, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback helps us uncover more hidden stories from our past. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the narratives.